one thing that Saxon says really early on, Buddhism is for people that want to suppress in life. They're afraid. Don't get attached. Don't have desires. Don't even try. Just sit there in the lotus position with a thumb up your ass.
My God. So interesting.
So he's representing very much like the perceived Western mind on and Eastern philosophy.
Western religion specifically, like I mentioned, puts a lot of faith outside of yourself.
Yes.
Your salvation being in Christ, it's in Jesus, it's in God, it's in someone else, it's up in the heavens. Whereas Eastern philosophy puts that salvation, that consciousness within you. And to me, suppression comes from putting responsibility of your fate in other people's hands.
Almost putting your intrinsic intuition aside, suppressing that so that you can go by the book of the Bible or whatever else.
And I think a lot of people think like, okay, like Buddha in Buddhism is also a god. They have a god. And it's like, Buddha was not a god. Buddha means the awakened one. For those who are deep enough to get it,
but profound enough to not care.
You're listening to Consciously Unconscious. We're live.
Piper,
no.
Buddhism, Piper. You're going to go to Taiwan.
How many episodes were there?
8. Like any good Netflix, or actually this is not Netflix, this is HBO Max. And can we talk about HBO Max for a second?
Sure.
I feel like every good TV series has been done from HBO.
Oh.
They are an excellent
She's taking a stance.
franchise. Game of Thrones, Girls, White Lotus.
I'm just not the right person to ask because I pay for one streaming platform, which is Netflix, which is crazy that I actually need to pay for it myself because who does that?
Right.
Who pays for it themselves? My parents kicked me out because they can only have 2 households on their account and my brother gets the other one.
You know what was so sad? As I was talking to my grandma yesterday about this because I was like, Grandma, I just watched, I don't remember what I said that I watched, but I was asking her if she's like reading anything, are you watching anything? And she's like, well, no, I can't even get Netflix because, Christian tried to give it to me, but then it wouldn't let me because I'm not in his household. And now my poor 84-year-old grandma can't watch anything Netflix. Nope.
Someone give her a login.
Thank you.
And me too while you're at it. Because I am only on Netflix and I gotta say it's pretty trash out there.
Yeah,
It's pretty trash. And so what I did is the free trial to try to watch White Lotus on HBO Max.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have HBO Max and I don't believe that they have the household limit thing, so I should give it to you.
Yeah, you absolutely
can watch
should.
it.
So I can cancel my free trial because I got it and then I watched 2 episodes and
So you watched a couple?
Barely.
Of season 3?
I was doing other things while watching.
Okay.
But I did. I watched season 1 and I watched season 2.
So you get the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand.
I have been jazzed to talk about White Lotus.
Yeah, she's been.
For so long.
I've been talking about White Lotus with Amanda for weeks.
And this is my moment. The time has come. And I am just so fascinated by this show. He
was on Survivor.
But he's also Ned Schneebly.
Of course.
You know that, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Mike
School
White.
of Rock, legendary.
Yeah. So Mike White.
That's why I sing Memories All Alone in the Moonlight every single time.
Yeah. So I've been chomping at the bit to talk about White Lotus. And I will just put it out there right now that if you have not seen it, maybe don't listen unless you do not care about spoilers. And I will put in when I edit, like, here's where we don't talk about spoilers and you can actually talk about it. Because what I found so compelling in this show, and specifically this season, was the Buddhism of it all. And Jess and I talk about like Buddhist principles.
I'm a Buddhist.
Often. Or would you classify yourself as a Buddhist?
I practice Buddhism.
Yeah?
Yes.
Like you attached to that religion?
I'm not necessarily attached. That's the whole point. We're going to get into that. But I'm a Buddhist.
Okay. So Jess is a Buddhist, and we just, I don't know, I think a lot of what we talk about kind of airs on these Eastern philosophies, and I found the intersection of Western culture and Eastern culture to be so prevalent in this show, and specifically this season, which was so eye-opening, because I think a lot of what Mike White does so well is that it's so satirical. It's comedy, it's funny, and he's using humor, like I would like to think that we do, to be able to talk about these larger conversations and these larger concepts. And so I'm just so excited.
I'm so excited. Well, here is where my stance comes in. I haven't seen the show. So I'm coming from season 3 at least, I'm coming from a very just like objective, external, unbiased conversation that has to do with Eastern versus Western thought and how I'm interpreting Amanda's
My cultural critique on the show.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
So why don't you start by giving me a very concise rendition of the plot line?
Okay. Lot of what
Sorry. Can we get our bevies in our hand for this shit?
Should we get straws now that I'm thinking about it? I don't want anything to settle at the bottom. Should we get straws?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get straws. We'll be right back. But you can't take a sip yet.
Oh, okay, but I want to be sipping it while you're talking about it. Like, I want to be sipping on this piña colada. I want to be sipping on this
fine. Hold on.
Buddhism juice.
Cheers.
I want to be sipping on this Buddha juice.
That's the beverage of the week song.
I want to be sipping on the Buddha juice.
Buddha likes piña coladas.
Holy shit. Dude, who doesn't like a pina colada?
Cheers. Actually, I don't, but
What?
yeah, I don't. Okay, so let's taste this.
Don't do that in the microphone. Whoa, there's a lot of rum in there.
That's really good, though.
Could be definitely more pineapple-y. But like,
mine is really good.
fucking fuck a pina colada.
I
fucking fuck a pina colada.
I can taste the pineapple in mine. Can you in yours?
Of course I can taste the fucking pineapple.
I didn't know that pineapple was in a pina colada. I'm not a pina colada girl.
Are you a strawberry daiquiri girl?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, folks.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really actually a frozen drink gal to begin with. Like, I'm not going to order a frozen drink. I'll order a frozen marg. That's like my go-to frozen.
That's the worst.
No, it's the best. It's the best. But anyway, okay. The way that I'm going to...
chomping at the bit. She said absolutely zero banter.
Yeah, none.
Zero banter. I want to talk about White Lotus. I want to critique Mike White. I want to get to the bottom of Buddhism.
I do. I really do. You call me Piper.
I won't, but...
do it. A lot of the critique on this season specifically was there's no plot. There's no plot. Like, there wasn't enough plot, which I kind of see that. I kind of don't. The way that I'm going to explain it for the sake of you just kind of getting the gist is just by the people who were staying at the White Lotus, like the groups of people that the show followed. So you have the Ratliff family, which is Victoria Ratliff, who says Piper. She's a pill poppin' gal. Mm-hmm. She's married to Timothy Ratliff, and he is this big wig in business who, throughout his stay at the White Lotus, realizes that an embezzlement job that he did 10 years ago is now coming to fruition, and he's getting basically
he's gonna get
exposed for it.
Arrested?
He is like probably gonna go home and go to jail.
Okay.
They are here because their daughter Piper is writing a thesis on Jesus. Writing a thesis on Buddhism. Okay. So then she's got an older brother, Saxon, who is played by Patrick Schwarzenegger, which is just classic, eldest son to a successful father, just wants to be connected to his dad's success, wants to work for his dad, wants to be seen as like successful in his dad's eyes, wants to like get pussy, get money, all the things. And very like frat, cringy. Then they have a younger brother named Lachlan, and he's just very much people pleaser, wants to be seen as important to his siblings and doesn't really know how to be his own person, just wants to like satisfy what they want. Then you have a group of 3 elder women. Not elder, they're like in their 50s, but
one of them's famous.
Yes, one of them is famous, and then the other 2, one has like a great life, the other one, it comes out that she's like doesn't really love her life. Like, she spent her whole life working a job that she didn't really love, and it never paid off. But it's these 3 women who were friends from high school, and now they're kind of coming back together, and it's very much just like, oh, well, you're just so pretty, and like your life is perfect, and they're like, yeah, I'm really happy in my life, like, and then it obviously comes out that they're not. Then we have Chelsea and Rick.
This is the couple?
Yes. This is the couple.
I'm interested in them.
Chelsea is this gorgeous English woman who is dating this older guy whose name is Rick. And he's just this grumpy, sinister man, like comes to Thailand, pays for this hotel, isn't enjoying a single second of it.
I can tell that he's there for an ulterior motive of trying to get to know the owner's husband or something.
Yes.
In the first 2 episodes, there's zero depiction of love for her.
Because he's so blinded by the love he didn't get.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole concept is like, will his pain win or will her hope win? And then Guy Talk, which is like the security guard or he's the guy who lets people in to the hotel. Not the valet guy, but like the whatever. And the whole season, he's grappling with like, I am a Buddhist and I don't want to inflict pain on anyone and I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't know if I have what it takes to kill somebody if I have to. And there's also a really interesting theory about Mike White wanting to do the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Yes. So the first one was like greed. The second one was love. And now this season was wrath. And he wants to shoot it.
Lust was the second one.
Lust, greed, and wrath.
You said love.
I said lust.
You didn't.
He also wants to shoot it in the 7 different continents is what people are thinking.
Cool.
Which is cool. Anyway, there's a lot of like little nuggets of breadcrumbs that he leaves. But the whole idea of why I wanted to talk about this is because when Timothy Ratliff finds out that he is basically getting exposed for embezzlement and his entire family is going to lose everything that they have, and his pill-popping wife is over there saying like, I just don't know if I would want to live if I didn't have this lifestyle. And his oldest son tells him like, I am nothing without your success. I'm attached to your work and I'm okay with that, but I am nothing. I don't have any other passions. I don't have any other hobbies. I'm yours. He is contemplating killing himself and killing the whole family.
Papa.
And the reason we're drinking the piña coladas is because one of the first scenes of the show is one of the butlers, is what they call them, comes to their villa and they're picking up these fruit and they're like, what are all these fruit on the ground? And she goes, don't eat those.
They're poisonous.
They're poisonous. If you eat the seed, they call it like the suicide tree. Because if you eat the seed, if you grind up the seed and eat it, you'll die. Like it's enough to kill a human. So because he's like, my family can't live without material.
He wants to kill himself by eating
He wants to kill the whole family to spare them. So what he does is he grinds up the seeds.
He plans to kill everyone.
And he tells the server, hey, later, can you bring up some piña colada ingredients? Because I want to make some piña coladas as like a celebration. He grinds up the seeds. He makes a piña colada and he gives it to everyone except for Lachlan because he has a conversation, which was the youngest son, with him saying, do you think you could live without money? And Lachlan goes, yeah, I think I could. And he goes, I know you could. So he's going to spare him. And he tells him, you're not 21.
So he has to just sit and find his whole family fucking shredded to bits by the suicide tree.
But the whole reason that led me to spiral on, we need to have a conversation on attachment, because that's what my takeaway was of this whole season, was our attachments to things is the root of all of our suffering.
Buddha would say.
When Piper is deciding that if she wants to go to this meditation center or not, her mom loses her mind and she's like, why would you stay in Thailand? Like, she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. And she goes, okay, well, you can stay at this meditation center for the whole year if you go and sleep there for one night. Long story short, Piper sleeps there and realizes like, I like my bed, I like my nighties, I like all my things, I don't want to come here. Like, I know I shouldn't be attached, but I want to be attached. And so Victoria makes Timothy go and talk to the monk, like the lead monk there.
Okay.
To just see if it's not a cult or whatever. And Timothy goes and he's like, okay, well, like, this seems like a great...
Wait, who's Timothy?
The dad, Tim.
Okay.
Goes and talks to him and is like, well, this seems like a great center. Like, I'm I don't have any qualms about this. Like, this seems like a really good place for Piper to be. Like, I'm down for it. And then he goes, I actually have one more question for you. What happens when we die? And the monk goes, that's a great question. Essentially, when you're born, you're like one drop of water and you live your life. And then when you die, you descend back into this big ocean of consciousness. And it's not about like a losing, it's a coming back home. And so now Tim is like, oh, well, great, I'm going to kill everyone. Like,
yeah, we're all going home.
If it's a coming home, I'm going to kill everyone. It was super striking to me because the Western mind, the Eastern mind, if we're not supposed to be attached, what's the point of living? Like, I think it really does raise a huge conversation of if it is a homecoming. And if we're not supposed to be attached to things, like, what is the fucking point of living?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, and now I'm done.
There's so much here, and I think it's really cool and really interesting when people create cinematography that really speaks to the larger consciousness existence questions, which is why I probably should watch the show now that I know everything that's going to happen. It's going to feel a little less like jarring, but I think that it's really interesting cultural commentary that I pride people on portraying in fictional characters. And as many of you know throughout watching us and listening to us or following me, is that I've been practicing Buddhism for years now. I've been studying Buddhism for years now, whether or not we want to call it Buddhism or just kind of like the inner workings of your own mind and your own soul. That's really what it is. And when we come into this landscape of comparing Western and Eastern philosophy and religion, we take the focus away from a deity, a god, a something to worship outside of yourself, which we play into much in Western religion. And we take it as into just like exploring your own mind, exploring your own self. And so I would just start by starting this episode to say, like, if you are in the process of asking yourself questions, figuring out your attachments, really doing the work to go within, to take the attention from putting your faith and your belief system out there and putting it more in here, you are practicing Eastern philosophy. And Buddhism is not necessarily like a religion that you follow with like guidelines and codes. Yes, we're going to talk about the Four Noble Truths. We're going to talk about the Eightfold Path. But one of the most prominent and important things that Buddha says is, don't listen to me. Don't take my words as literal. Practice it yourself. Find it yourself. So I think that all of these questions, as we talk about these practices and these patterns of thought and these belief systems today, take them with a grain of salt. Don't listen to us. Don't listen to Buddha. Don't listen to these texts and these spiritual writings. Take what you hear and go ask yourself these questions about your own attachments, because that's the practice of Eastern religion. That's the practice of Eastern philosophy.
Well, and to bring it back to the characters, it was interesting how they talked about the different attachments that we can have. So the group of the three women, where one of them was famous, it was so clearly like attached to image, attached to upholding this image of my life is perfect. I have the perfect job. I have the perfect body. I have the perfect husband. I have the perfect boyfriend, all the things. With the Ratliff family, was very much attachment to success and money. With Chelsea and Rick, it was very much an attachment to roles, identities, but also relationships. I'm only worthy because of my relation to this person. I am only a healer because I am here to heal him. And it was interesting because a lot of people were like, you know, Rick is so attached to the love he didn't get in his shitty life, but then they were praising Chelsea, and I'm like, yes, but she also was super attached to being the hope, the light, only in attachment to him.
I think if we're going to talk specifically about attachments, we need to cover the Four Noble Truths.
Okay.
Because this will play so deeply into like converting all this information to the characters and their attachments.
Okay, can I give you this quote because I think it'll lead into this?
Go.
So one thing that Saxon says really early on, he's talking to Lachlan, and Lachlan is like, oh yeah, it's really cool that Piper is kind of into Buddhism. And he goes, Buddhism is for people that want to suppress in life. They're afraid. Don't get attached. Don't have desires. Don't even try. Just sit there in the lotus position with a thumb up your ass.
My God. So interesting.
So he's representing very much like the perceived Western mind on Eastern philosophy.
Yeah, this skeptic mindset of Eastern philosophy, which I get. And I think this goes back to like Westernism and Western religion specifically, like I mentioned, puts a lot of faith outside of yourself.
Yes.
Puts a lot of hierarchy in terms of your salvation being somewhere other than yourself. Your like godliness is not you. It's It's in Christ. It's in Jesus. It's in God. It's in someone else. It's up in the heavens. It's somewhere external. Whereas Eastern philosophy puts that salvation, that consciousness, that godliness within you. And I personally think that sometimes, again, to each their own, your life is your life, your beliefs are your beliefs. But I personally think that the avoidance comes from putting responsibility and putting faith outside of yourself. And while I think that there's a beautiful belief system in believing in something greater than you, whatever that looks like, I think that his quote is funny because it's almost the opposite of my beliefs about like, what was the first thing that he said?
Buddhism is for people that want to suppress in
that
life.
want to suppress. And to me, suppression comes from putting responsibility of your fate in other people's hands.
Almost putting your intrinsic intuition aside, suppressing that so that you can go by the book of the Bible or whatever else.
And I think a lot of people think like, okay, like Buddha in Buddhism is also a god. They have a god. And it's like, Buddha was not a god. Buddha means the awakened one. Buddha was a normal man.
He was a teacher, right?
Yeah. And he was a prince actually. But he experienced what we all do, which is suffering, sickness, illness, hardship in life, and started asking himself by sitting in meditation, all of himself, many versions of themselves, by sitting under the Bodhi tree. This is where he would go and he would contemplate and he would think and sit with himself and go within and question his own mind and question his experience and his existence. And he came up with the Four Noble Truths. And these are just like, when we talk about the Four Noble Truths and we talk about the Eightfold Path, this is not like a literal textual translation of like the Bible or the Quran or something where there are like rules to follow. These are just realizations that he had, that he's like, let me share these with you and see if these will help you realize things in yourself. And so the Four Noble Truths start with the idea that life is suffering. That's the first one. And not in a nihilistic, not in a pessimistic, negative way. Life is suffering.
Well, that's partly why I wanted to do this episode, because I think when you do come from a very Western perspective, which I do, I come from a very work hard, play hard, earn hard, success, money, image, wealth. That's what you aspire to have. I come from that. So once you remove that perspective and put yourself in the mind of like an Eastern perspective, but not like put yourself there, almost just kind of like look at it with first glance, it can seem kind of nihilistic.
Totally. But that's why you need to get to the other truths.
Yes.
Is because the first one is life is suffering. And that's literally just an inherent objective truth about our experience. No one is exempt from it. Not a single human alive is exempt from suffering. The second truth is that it has a cause. The reason why we suffer is because of our attachments, our ignorance. So it's saying, yes, we suffer, but there's a reason why. The third truth is we can get rid of our suffering. We can move beyond the suffering. And so, yes, you will experience it, but yes, you can move beyond it. And so there's a way to end it. It doesn't mean that there's a way to not experience it at all. There's just a way to end it, which is to release, to let go, to remove attachments. And then the last truth is, well, how do I do it? Through the Eightfold Path. And so it's life is suffering. There's a reason why they're suffering, but you can put an end to suffering, and here's how. And it's that simple. And the here's how, the Eightfold Path, are just kind of like moral and ethical codes to living.
Yeah.
The similar...
don't kill, don't steal.
Yeah, we'll go over those, but kind of.
Okay.
And they're suggestions. They're suggestions to help you, just like an astrological chart, just like your numerology, just like these things that are suggestions to help you optimize your life. It's that.
Here's where I think I struggle though to understand. We just did an episode with Sarah Smith from Raw Intentions podcast, and that's going to come out, and we kind of talk about this briefly. But I think where I'm struggling to understand is that, with that said, life is suffering, there's a cause, everything else, where my mind goes, okay, well then what are we if we're not our attachments? Like, what is the fucking point? Because here's the thing. Like, it's fun to be attached to things sometimes.
Yes.
It's fun to to interact with those attachments. And if we are all just drops of water in a larger body of consciousness, do we all have intrinsic value or do we not? Do we all have a purpose? Or what is the purpose? What do we live for?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think a distinction that we need to make before we go further is, again, the difference between Western and Eastern thought, that Western thought separates yourself from the rest of the world. Like, Western thought says that you're in your own experience, you're in your own body, you're separate from the deities, you're separate from the heavens, you are you in your own experience.
Yeah.
Eastern thought puts you as a drop of water in the entire body of consciousness. It is the Alan Watts quote of, you are the universe experiencing itself. You are the stars, you are the rocks, you are the frequency, the energy of everything. That's how it's all connected. That's how it's all combined. And so I think that the point of Buddhism, and if we get into like other philosophical things, which we're not going to touch on today because it's just too much, but like Stoicism and Taoism and all these Hinduist beliefs, like, these things teach you that it's not a point to be passive, to be apathetic, to not play into the roles that require attachment. Roles require attachment to interact and play with them. Mm-hmm. It's not the point to not participate and say, there's nothing here for me to live for if I'm just supposed to sit with my thumb up my ass and meditate.
Yeah.
It's to recognize the beauty, the true capital L love of being who you are beyond the roles, of being pure awareness, pure consciousness, pure light, pure love. That is like the holy fuck. This isn't nihilistic. This isn't negative. This is like, I am everything. And how amazing is that I am everything all at once? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So then I guess your singular purpose, or what you think is your purpose, is actually kind of limiting, because it's more than just like your purpose and my role. And I'm here to be a coach, or I'm here to be like a engineer. I'm here to be a doctor. Like, it's so much more than those roles. It's more about, well, maybe that's why I'm struggling, is because I think Western culture is so conditioned to identify yourself based on your work, based on your career.
Sure.
And that is also confused with purpose.
We've westernized the term purpose.
Yeah.
We have commodified the term purpose. Purpose in Buddhism is to find peace.
So that's what I was going to say.
Peace. And when you are beyond the roles and the identities, what Buddhism calls the non-self, which is what we're talking about, is anatta. Anatta is the non-self. It is the you beyond your roles. It is the you beyond what's my purpose in terms of how I act, how I behave, what my sensations are, what my emotions are. It's so much.
But it can feel so unproductive when you've been conditioned to achieve.
Sure, it's productivity is not a word that exists in Eastern philosophy. I mean, like, productivity is a super dangerous and slippery slope to figure out what makes you feel productive versus peaceful.
Do you think Buddhism and capitalism can coexist?
I do.
Really?
I do. I answered that without really thinking about it. So let me think about that. I initially inherently want to just say I do, because the idea, the concept of Buddhism and practicing.
Every time I just hear
Buddhism, Piper, no, Buddhism.
You have the voice.
the concept is just going within. The concept is softening, is being gentler, is being less attached, is being curious and intrinsic. And that can be applied to anything. To practice. Go ahead.
No, keep going.
I think that there are much stricter expectations and rules when you practice things like Catholicism, where there is a right and a wrong way to practice these religions, quote unquote. And I just don't feel that way with Buddhism. And so to answer the question of like, can capitalism and Buddhism exist? Do I think that there are paradoxical contradicting tendencies of the goal of each of them, the outcome of each of them? Yes, because capitalism really leans into productivity and worth and
Success
material.
outside of yourself.
And success outside of yourself, where the self-discovery component of Buddhism is the opposite. I feel that practicing Buddhism is just like the recognition of being alive and being aware and being mindful. So maybe it's the idea that you can practice capitalism mindfully, which is how I see them coexisting. Because I don't know that it's necessarily really feasible and plausible in a Western world like the United States or Europe or wherever you reside, where you do participate in a capitalistic society, whether you want to or not. But you can still come in with this like loving, mindful awareness and introspection and self.
I just find that it would be very hard to participate in capitalism once you become a little bit more enlightened to these principles. Because one, how do you continue to give a fuck?
This.
Yeah.
Because a massive principle in these philosophies is compassion.
Yeah.
Because once you recognize that no one's exempt from suffering, you start to develop this sense of empathy and compassion that everyone is suffering. So why is it not just my one job to just be kind to people? And something that capitalism is completely missing is compassion.
Yeah.
That's non-existent in a capitalistic, materialistic, power-hungry, hustle culture-driven world. And the compassion...
That's why I find coaching so gross now.
Why? What do you mean?
Not okay, that was a very general statement and I shouldn't have said that. That's just why I find capitalizing on enlightenment very icky.
Yeah.
Like the quest to make people feel more enlightened in a very, take my 7-week program, feels so gross. Well, because there has to be an ulterior motive of capitalism. But then you're teaching these very, don't be attached, don't.
Yeah, it's really paradoxical. And I think the problem with it is that it's inherently... Okay, there's this quote. Let's see if I can get this out in a way that makes sense. In Taoism, which we're not going to talk about, but Taoism is another Eastern philosophy that's very like wu-wei, like flow like water, nature connected, similar. The one who says that they know the Tao automatically doesn't know the Tao or something. Or it's basically the concept of the one that says that they're enlightened is the furthest thing from enlightened.
Yeah.
And so the ones that are selling these enlightenment coaching sessions and like capitalizing on this Eastern thought.
Like, do this for 30 days and you will be changed.
They're promising this certainty.
Yes.
And the point of Eastern philosophy is that it doesn't promise certainty. It promises presence. So
Facts.
When you promise someone certainty of your life is going to look a certain way if you practice this, you're going to feel a certain way if you practice this.
Yes.
You're automatically selling a lie that is so far outside of what you're trying to preach. Mm-hmm. And you're selling intellect. You're not selling beingness.
Yes.
You're selling...
Well, you're also selling a false sense of productivity, because then you're telling people you can do this, you can change that. And I actually don't believe that it's really all in our hands.
Selling a false sense of productivity. Yeah,
Like you can control your outcomes, which I don't necessarily believe.
So...
But I think that's also getting into the interplay of like life happens to us and for us. I just think that the older I get, the more I realize like life is going to happen regardless if I choose to do this or that. It's still going to fucking happen.
Yeah.
So how can I promise an outcome that tells people that you can control it if that's not actually true?
And you're talking about coaching still?
Yes. Yeah. In the lens of like promising this false sense of productivity.
Well, I just don't like the push to tell someone to like adopt a specific belief system.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's not an adoption of a specific belief system. It's a journey inward. So I pride people on coaching and mentorship and leadership and these gurus, these actual masters and teachers who just provide people the questions and provide people the platforms and the safe space to go within. I do not honor people who tell you what you should believe based on X, Y, and Z principle. You're not selling someone a belief system. That's not what this is. You're
selling guidance.
And you should be a catalyst for someone to want to go within.
Yes.
That's the coaching that should be done around these practices.
Something that was so interesting in the show was that Piper the whole time is like grappling with this idea that she comes from a very wealthy family, that she has had this lifestyle, that the thing that got her to Thailand to begin with was the fact that she came from a privileged family. Mm-hmm. Wants to go to this meditation center, goes like, is kind of intimidated by all the monks, like just kind of like, whoa, this is really, I'm here now and it's more tangible than I thought.
Yeah.
And so she stays for a night and she like eats the food that they eat and she's like in her little dormitory that's really not kept up. And she has this whole monologue of like, I know I shouldn't be attached, but I am. Mm-hmm. But I am. And it was honestly so fucking relatable. I was like, I like you a little bit more now, because at first I was kind of like, oh, this like white bitch going to Thailand wants to become Buddhist. Like
me.
Wants to be a monk.
Literally me as fuck.
Yeah. And I'm like, you're more relatable now because you're recognizing, I don't know. And so that's just a conversation I wanted to bring up. Like, how do you grapple with the interplay of being detached and being attached?
Well, if anyone knows me, they know that I walk around with a Chanel bag and I practice Buddhism. Like, it's just, it is a really funny interplay that I often catch myself in a similar sentiment of, you know, I am a yoga teacher. I have studied in Asia for a year. I read all these books on these high level belief systems, or maybe not belief systems, but just like philosophies of being beyond what we're talking about. Capitalism, materialism, superficial attachments. Yet, I somehow have still not graduated from the fact that there are moments and times where I care about my image and I care about what bag I carry and I care about, you know, getting lip filler and I care about fucking whatever, what I post on my Instagram.
Isn't that just speaking to like, you also just trying to relate to people? Like, well, how do you exist in this, how do you participate if you don't participate?
You participate with the knowledge, the deep intuitive belief system that you are beyond the roles that you play in, because that's when the roles become fun to play in, is when you know that you're something bigger than it. I don't.
So you're not attached to it. You play in it, but you're not attached to it.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's a streaming platform called Gaia. Have you ever heard of it? Yeah. If you haven't, I'll give you my fucking login because...
No, don't. They'll give us a discount code and then you guys can sign up.
Perfect. Thank you, Gaia, for the discount code.
Thank you, capitalism.
Anyways, there is something on Gaia that's called Maya. It's a segment, and Maya is like a well-known terminology for the illusion. That's what it means. And it's like Maya, the illusion of the self. And the whole fucking game is that we are all disillusioned by the fact that the roles that we play are who we are. That's who we are. Yeah. That's why we're here. And it's like, no. The second that you unattached from the fact that you are those roles, that's like when the fun comes in. That's when you can carry a Chanel bag and it doesn't fucking matter. And like,
but why?
Why what?
Why? Why is that when the fun comes in?
Because there's less pressure. There's less trying to control. There's less trying to like fit yourself into these categories and these boxes that you don't necessarily inherently fit in.
So I think what I'm taking away from what you're saying is like it becomes more of a want versus a need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't need to have the Chanel bag to uphold the image that tells you who you are. You want it because why the fuck not?
It's the coffee cup and the cigarette.
Yeah.
It's the coffee cup and the cigarette. If you haven't seen that meme, it's like literally just the most profound meme that I've ever fucking seen in my life.
Which I cannot wait to go to France and actually take a picture with a coffee cup and a cigarette, you and I.
There is a meme that says spirituality on the left, and then it says spirituality advanced on the right. And spirituality on the left has a tarot card deck. It's got a pendulum. It's got the sage. It's got the this. It's got the frequency chart. Like it's got all these tools that people use that they believe makes them spiritual. And then on the right, it's literally got a coffee cup and a cigarette and says spirituality advanced. And it's might as well be a fucking Chanel bag and a fucking, I don't know. Like it's really been difficult for me. And so this episode is great practice to be able to articulate and describe experiences that to me feel very secondhand and second nature, but to people who don't understand how to practice these things. And how do I just explain to someone like, it doesn't matter. You're bigger than that. Like you're greater than that.
What is the tell me about an experience where you've actually been really close to like that enlightenment, what Buddha talks about of, what was that word you used?
Anatta, the non-self.
Yeah.
I mean, I experience it oftentimes just on a regular basis in the yoga room because I show up on my yoga mat without an identity. I show up in that space and in that room. And that's why people practice yoga, right? Is because you can show up, or you would hope that that's why. You show up and it doesn't matter who you are on the mat. You're not playing any other role on that mat. You're not playing mom. You're not playing friend. You're not playing employee. You're not playing anything other than just like breathing and moving your body in that space. And so that's a very non-self moment. Another like massive experience, if we want to swing the pendulum all the way to the other side, is when I studied in Asia and I was doing an 11-day fast where I literally did not eat a morsel of food for 11 days. The only thing I did was drink water. And you are just like in a very, 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 very extreme state of your being. You don't need to do these things to get yourself to experience this sense of non-self or this.
Right.
You don't need to go that far. But I'm always someone who will do extreme things just to experience them because that's just like a fucking cool thing to do. But I think that was one of the first times ever that I genuinely transcended my earthly experience.
Yeah. Like the physical.
Yeah. And realized that this like life force being that I was, because somehow I wasn't eating for 11 days, but I was still existing. I was breathing. I was seeing. I was feeling. I was touching. I was craving things. I was wanting things. I was experiencing a very intense emotion. So I was like still really material, but
do you
also
think you could describe it as like a deeply present feeling?
It's the only thing you can be is deeply present.
Yeah.
And at first it starts as being deeply present in your suffering, that you want food and you're hungry and you're pissed and you're tired and you're upset. And you are so deeply present in all of this suffering and all of these negative emotions that it's like, holy fuck, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, I'm the victim. This is crazy. Blah, blah. Like, you're just like so in it. And then all of a sudden, there really does hit a point where you are just like so sick and tired and exhausted of being in this place of suffering, and your physical body transcends the need and the craving and the physiological craving for food. And also your mind is just like, I am so blank. I'm so fucking blank. There's nothing to suffer about. There's nothing to yearn for. There's nothing to want. There's nothing to consider. There's nothing, and not in an apathetic way that there's nothing to feel. Like literally just like I'm so beyond everything that is like earthly right now. I'm so just like, I joke all the time. My phrase is like, I'm in the ether. I am so just like in the ether. Like I just felt like I was literally just like another pebble on a beach. I was just like a leaf in the wind. I was just like really like, oh my God, everything is everything. Mm-hmm. It's so fucking hard to describe, but
I know what you're describing though, because that's how I felt when I was giving birth to Ellis. Mm-hmm. That was the only time I have ever truly felt like nothing else fucking matters. I can't even feel pain because I am so deeply inside my bodily experience of just presence. I mean, it's the most gnarly thing. And I do hope that everyone can experience being so deeply present.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard. I've never gotten close ever to that feeling before. And just to be in a place where like you cannot think or I don't know, you just can't, there's nothing else to think about other than what's going on.
Completely, because it's a moment where you're not living in the past and you're not living in the future. So oftentimes you don't even realize, you don't even recognize how you're clinging, how you're reaching, how you're dreaming, how you're looking for something that you don't yet have, and or worrying about something that's already fucking happened.
But what's really interesting is about both of these experiences, childbirth and fasting, is it is painful. It is really a suffering experience. However, it felt so neutral. Like there was I have such a neutral feeling about it. I wouldn't have labeled it bad or good in the moment. It just was.
That's a really simple principle though in Eastern philosophy, is that there's no right, there's no wrong, there just is what it is. Mm-hmm. And we talk often about non-duality, and something that is also a big principle is that like there's no self without other, there's no good without bad, there's no this without that, black without white. And what that does is it creates a sense of neutrality. Mm-hmm. And so putting yourself in these extreme situations where we're really quick to label them as one or the other. Mm-hmm. Fasting is so hard and so scary and so like draining. Childbirth is the hardest thing you've ever been through, and it's like really painful, and it's this, and it's like, yeah, but on the contrary, isn't it almost like kind of neutralizing the scale of, because it's bringing you so much at the same time, it's bringing you this like blissful enlightenment presence. I mean, like what word else can we use besides like pure presence as the most positive thing ever? That then it falls into this level of neutrality, into this level of just like beingness.
Yes. Well, that's exactly it. I don't think I've ever just been ever like it. All you can do in moments like that is just be. So just be. And like, I don't think there really is a right or wrong, good or bad way to be.
Well, it's just understanding reality as it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And seeing the impermanence of everything is a huge like awakening moment that people have in all different ways, right? When they lose someone, when they get hurt, when things are fleeting, things are so fleeting. And when we recognize the impermanence is not a negative thing, it's just like a beautiful thing, then that gives you this sense of sovereignty. It gives you this sense of like, if everything is impermanent, then like, not apathetic as in like I'm just going to let things happen around me as impermanent. It's just like, well, why wouldn't I make decisions that enhance that impermanence? Because that's the flow. That's the freedom. That's the peace. Versus like the grasping and the holding and the like really needing things to be the way that you want them to be.
Yeah. So then what's the key to being, I guess what's the key to participating while also remaining the ability to be detached?
Should we talk about the Eightfold Path? I have them written down because I don't know them all. But essentially, like I said before, it's an ethical conduct of how to answer that question. And it's not linear, but like it's kind of a wheel where like each part supports the others.
Okay.
So these are all like called right this, right that, right this. And that's not in the sense that we mean like right or wrong. It just means like ethical.
Okay.
So the first one is right view. And that's like we were just talking about understanding reality as it is. So seeing things as impermanent and things are not being right or wrong. Second one is right intention. So acting from places of compassion, from kindness, from the desire to awaken and not control. 3, right speech. I say this at the end of every single yoga class, like speaking kindly, speaking truthfully, and speaking meaningfully. It's about recognizing like the power of language. Right action, living ethically, not stealing, not causing harm, just like being, a physical, tangible practice of compassion. Right livelihood. This is interesting because it contributes to the capitalism conversation. Earning in a way that doesn't harm the world, that doesn't contribute to suffering. So livelihood, we know that word as the word of like how to sustain and support yourself. And it's especially powerful in today's like hustle and burnout
That's
culture.
really, really prevalent too, even with like fast fashion culture and like ethical work environments. And that's such a spider web.
Yeah, that's a big conversation. 6 is right effort. Also a really interesting one of kind of finding, and this is very like Taoist, like the middle way. So not finding laziness,
Like
but
the burnout
not finding burnout.
Yeah.
And making like conscious effort towards your peace, your balance, your equilibrium, your harmony.
Got it.
So the middle way. Being able to choose growth without being obsessed with the growth.
Yeah.
Right mindfulness. Self-explanatory. Be aware of your body, your mind, your surroundings, your relationships. Like this is your practice of presence, coming back home to yourself and coming back to the moment. And then the last one is right concentration. And we haven't even touched upon one of the biggest practices of Eastern thought is meditation. And so like being able to cultivate one pointed focus,
Yeah.
which I talk about often in my yoga class, which is why yoga and birth and fasting gives you that like concentration. That's your one pointed focus. It's the training of the mind to have something so prominent and so prevalent to focus on that almost like not only nothing else matters, but then that thought itself disappears.
Yep.
And that's the transcendence. It's like, it's so interesting. So Eightfold Path, do you think that has connection to the question that you asked me?
You okay?
I'm burping because the piña colada is coming up.
Yeah, I do. What was the question I asked? Oh, how do you participate without and also be detached? Yeah. I think that tells you how to participate. I don't know that answers my larger question though of what do you live for if not for your attachments?
The sheer experience of being alive. Why is that not enough? Why is that not enough? Because
it is enough, but I just feel like it's so foreign to what we're trained to live for.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that. There's a girl, she did a video on if you
There's a girl who did a video.
If you got into one of the top universities in the country, Stanford, they have a 0.03 acceptance rate or 0.3 acceptance rate or whatever the fuck. You apply, you work your fucking ass off for your application, you get in, you're selected. Yay, you're accepted. You're over the moon. You are like, I'm so excited. I'm going to get my Stanford gear. I'm going to college here. You put it in your Instagram bio. You're on the Facebook groups. You are like locked in. What classes am I going to take? What this? You're lit the fuck up. The percentage, the chance of you being born onto this earth as you, Amanda, in this situation, in your life, being a healthy, happy, alive human, 0.00000000000000000 whatever. 3. That sheer fact should be enough to allow you to live for things beyond your attachment. Your attachments are fun. They're fun to play the game. They're fun to play the roles. They're fun to carry the bag. They're fun to do the things. But is the sun, we've all felt the sun on our skin. We have nothing to do, nothing to say to anyone.
Yes, but the problem is that our society is not set up for us to just literally sit and feel the sun on our skin.
Fine.
So I'm saying, how do you afford yourself the lifestyle to be able to practice these principles, but you still also have to make money and like live and afford things and like
you make compromises,
but you do it with the Eightfold Path.
You do it with the Eightfold Path, but you make compromises that you're not exempt from suffering, even with living on the Eightfold Path, and even with like, you know, you don't get to not experience suffering even if you sit under a tree all day and soak up the sun and have nothing to do. But I think that, I mean, that's a really hard question for people to answer. So I don't have the answers. I don't know. I'm doing the best I fucking can at trying to say that, like, the less I resent the fact that I have to do this, the less I'm jaded about the fact that our society has gotten to the way that it has, and our advancements have pushed our values and morals this way, the more it's just like, you know, there's no right, there's no wrong, there just is what it is. So how do we play? How do I find moments of presence even in a capitalistic society? How do I find moments where the thinking mind's out of the way, where I can release attachments? Like, it's you're gonna ebb and flow in all of these directions of attached, not attached. I care, I don't really care. What do I look like? Who fucking cares what I look like? Like, you're gonna find this dichotomy of being really wrapped up into everything that we are conditioned to be wrapped up into, and then also having like moments of true awakening and true selflessness and true beingness beyond the self that we call the self. Like these conversations are so big. And I think before we wrap up, I would love, if you have any too, to leave people with some resources where they can really start digging into some of this more esoteric thought, because it's a consistent practice. And that's why I appreciate the fact that Eastern thought is considered practices, not necessarily belief systems or religions, that if you follow, this is what you get. This is who you are. It's a consistent checking in on yourself. It's a consistent asking yourself questions. It's a consistent like reminder that being alive is the greatest gift there is.
Yeah.
Before we end this episode, I want to leave people with a list to start to dig.
I don't know. I think that what to me is so inspiring about film and television and pop culture and the entertainment industry is that it really does shape our culture.
Yeah.
And I try to watch things that get me to think, and I am such a fucking question asker that like anything I watch, Lucas like almost refuses to watch things with me because I'm just constant. Why do you do that? What is he doing? What is this about? Pause. Did you hear that? What do you think that was about? And he's like, bitch, watch the fucking show. I don't know. But that would be my thing that I would want to leave people on, because I don't have a lot of like resources on Buddhism specifically. But I think that start to consume media that is thought-provoking. That is what I would leave you with. Consume less media that is entertaining and just mindless, and more media that is thought-provoking. Substack has been super big for me and just the way that I think, and it's been very inspiring. And, you know, watch things that make you question things, and then don't be afraid to ask the fucking questions. I mean, I think that I just get so much value in asking questions that might feel taboo or might feel really heavy or whatever. But like the question just lingering into the ether is enough. Like the question just being there for people to mull over, regardless if anyone has the answers, is really important. So that's what I would leave you with, is just ask the questions.
I've written down a few kind of foundational, approachable, educational books. A lot of these are a gentle way to ease yourself in. I do have a list at the end that I will give, and I'm not going to go on forever, but that are a little bit more high level, like deeply, deeply esoteric. If this is also something,
put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes, of course. But just at first glance, I mean, the first thing that I always tell anyone is Be Here Now by Ram Dass, which I got Amanda for Christmas. And it's psychedelic, it's spiritual. It's just like this beautiful illustrated dive into not necessarily just Buddhism, but like present moment awareness and Eastern mysticism and like self-transcendence. Second one that I have is The Untethered Soul. We know we love Michael Singer here. He is so good at giving practical information, practical guides to, okay, now I have all this like esoteric, crazy information. How do I apply it to my life?
Personally, I think that he's a little bit easier to listen to than to read. So if you don't fuck with it, with like the reading, listen to his podcast.
He is the perfect example of someone who teaches Buddhism without ever saying the word Buddhism.
Yes.
Do you know who Pema Chodron is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She is wonderful. She's a modern Buddhist nun, and she writes lovely, lovely books. And one of the things is called When Things Fall Apart.
I have to read it.
It's so good. It's just about embracing uncertainty and fear, and it's just an interesting approach, and like heartbreak, and basically the ways suffering are is gateways to awakening. And then if we get a little bit more into like heavier, like I'm ready for this books, if you read anything by Alan Watts. So The Way of Zen or The Watercourse Way. I'm going to leave you there. And then one of the last ones that he writes that is probably like the highest level book that I've ever read is called The Book on the Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are. It's all about seeing the cosmic joke. That's what he calls it, the cosmic joke.
I have to read that.
You have to read it. It's basically just like less about how to live and more about how to understand the illusion of ego and identity and like the exact questions that you're asking. So if I leave you with one thing, if you feel prepared, if you feel ready to dig, it's On the Taboo of Knowing Who You Are by Alan Watts.
Yeah, love. Go watch White Lotus if you haven't and you don't care about spoilers, because it is actually really interesting to kind of take it in on your own and then ask these questions. But thank you guys for listening to this episode. We love you.
I love you so much. And subtle plug, come to one of my yoga classes if you're in Denver. That's what this shit's all about. Take one of Amanda's coaching sessions, human design sessions, like beyond the podcast. Not that we're your gurus or we're your authority figures in any way, but like this is the shit that lights me up, and this is the stuff that we love to consider and talk about, and we don't know the answers, but we're happy to help ask the questions and answer them with you and realize that they don't always have answers. And so as we're brewing and as we're thinking about things that we want this podcast to look like and where we want it to go, we're thinking about coaching again. We're thinking about leading retreats. We're teaching classes. We're thinking about ways to really like actualize these thoughts, these principal belief systems of like, how the fuck are we living and also just being girls at the same time?
Yep.
So if you have any suggestions, if you have any like wants and needs for what you feel like you're missing in your life that we could help offer, what you want to see from us, please share. Please, please, please give feedback.
And leave us a review.
And leave us a review. Always the plug at the end of the episode. But we love you, and we love Piper.
Piper, please.
Bye.
Bye.